In this video I'm going to add 3 trombones to provide some backing chords to Georgia on My Mind. I'll use some different types of voicings to show you how they sound, including open, closed, and rootless voicings. All of the examples in this video are played by a real trombone and bass trombone. Thank you so much to Pablo Ruiz Enal for playing these for me. I think he sounds awesome. Please go check out his YouTube channel. There are quite a few different chord changes for Georgia. I tried a few of them out and settled on these ones for this version. Okay, so here is the melody as played freely by the first trombone. As this is more typically a jazz setting, I'll have a bass and drums as well. So I think here at the opening, it's going to be really nice to have a nice rich open voicing. I better start with a really low B flat down here. That's totally fine for a bass trombone. Okay, and I want to make up some sort of B flat major 7. Let's think about where the third might go. Probably there, that would be good. And let's have a 7th. I think there would be good. In this case, I wouldn't put the 7th down an octave in this position. It's just going to sound a bit grumbly down there. You can even hear it on a piano. Having it up there like that will sound good. The melody's on the 5th, so we have a nice B flat major 7 here. Other options would have been, you could have a 6th. There's nothing wrong with that, but I'm going to opt for the major 7 in this case. Okay, let's move on to the A minor 7 flat 5. Going to have the bass trombone go down to the A. Now here I get a similar thing. I could have, say, a flat 5. There. It's going to sound a little grumbly, even though it's quite a large interval. It's not too bad. And let's have a 3rd. I'm going to put the 3rd there, even though it's just a 2nd away from the melody. That's fine. They're playing different rhythms, and I find 2nds at the top are usually okay in the lower register of music. I'm going to try change this flat 5 for the 7. Like that. I know that means I miss a flat 5, but I do get the 7th. I think that'll sound good. Yeah. You can see these are super open voicings, like we've got a large gap here from the bass trombone to the 3rd trombone. And that's okay. If you were to fill it in, if you had another trombone, you could probably choose something like the octave. And if you did it here on the first one, you could have the 5th. That would be super rich. But we've only got the 4 trombones in total, so we'll leave it like that. Okay, let's move on to the D7. And we've got the 7th in the melody, so we won't necessarily need to cover that in the other trombones. There's the root, 3rd, and 5th. That's a pretty basic voicing. That should sound good. In this sort of range, you could have had the 7th with the other trombone. It's not too grumbly there, but again, we don't have enough trombones. We got it in the melody anyway. Alright, I'm just going to have a look at the individual voice leading, make sure everything flows nicely, and it'd be nice to play. So the bass trombone's got a nice line. That's fine. They'll be used to playing that sort of thing. The 3rd trombone. Yeah, good. And the 2nd trombone. Yeah, that's all fine. It's good to check people's individual parts and make sure they're nice and playable. Now, as these are nice big open voicings, you'll see that I've opted for the root note right down low in the bottom. And that's really going to make this nice and solid, grounded, and fat. And I think that's nice for the start of this arrangement. Okay, let's move on to G minor 7. I'll stick with the root note and the bass trombone. And let's have a 7th and a 3rd. That's a really typical shell voicing of root, 7th, 3rd. good one to use. The first trombone's nicely above this, so it's going to sound really great. And let's do something similar for the F minor 7. First, 7th, 3rd. And we have a nice 9th in the melody. Okay, on to this B flat 7. I'm going to choose this B flat this time. I feel like with this faster movement, it needs to be a little bit of a lighter texture, so that's why I'm going for the higher octave. And I'm going to go for a 5th, and a 3rd, and a 7th, I should say. Yeah, that trombone can hold that note over if we like. That might sound nice. We don't have a 3rd, but it is in the melody. Let's hear what that sounds like. Okay, it's time to move on to the E minor 7, flat 5. And how about I try a rootless voicing? So, rootless voicing, it doesn't mean anything fancy, it just means there's no root note in the voicing, and it's typically left to the rhythm section to play. In this case it would be the bass. And it tends to give us a lighter feel. This is quite synonymous with the jazz language, that we have the rhythm section or other accompanying instruments playing a lighter sound, and it enables the other music like the melody or soloist to really help dominate the texture. So how about I put a 7th on the bottom, and let's have a 3rd and the flat 5. And so yeah, there's no E here. And so the E would be being played by the bass. Now that seems like it's really close, but of course the bass sounds an octave lower. So that wouldn't be too grumbly of a texture. So that's completely possible. We have this flat 13 or flat 6 in the melody, but I think it's okay. It makes a nice enough chord. Let's carry on the rootless theme and have a 7th in the bass trombone here. And I'm actually looking ahead now to this A flat 7 because that D flat is going to drop to the 3rd. And that just means I'm considering their part and sort of the smoothness of the backing. If the backings are relatively smooth, it helps bring attention to the lead trombone. Okay, what else do we need? We need a 3rd for this E flat minor 7 there, and we'll need a flat 7. Again, that's the same note, could be tied. And we've already got this B flat here, so how about I try for A flat here. It's actually an 11th, and yeah, it could become the root on this chord. That's totally fine. So these two are rootless, and then this one actually does have the root note, but not in the bass trombone. And that should sound good. I'm just going to fix these parts up. There we go. We can even put a slur on it to make sure it's nice and played smoothly. Okay, so we've done 4 bars. I'll show you what I would do for the bass part, in case you need to know. Because some of these notes are really low, it needs to follow those notes as well. Otherwise it's just going to sound grumbly and muddy. Put a root note there, and then a 5th. Could be a 5th or an octave. Root note. Root note. And here the bass is going to play the root note. And even on these rootless voicings, the bass will play the root note. The bass doesn't have to play the root note, but it's going to sound nicest in this sort of ballad style. Right, here's what that sounds like with just the trombones. And here's what it sounds like with everything in. Alright, let's move on to the next bars. Okay, so here the melody goes higher, so it would be nicer to respond to that. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the rhythm of these backings a bit. So it might be nice to have a rest in here, and it gives the trombones a wee breather, as well as actually providing some forward rhythmic impetus. I'll show you what I mean. So I've got a D minor 7. How about I put a 7th? And that way the trombones are going to get the rest and then provide this nice little offbeat accent. It's something that's really easy to do, and it sort of reflects the change in the melody here. So how about I try a closed position rootless voicing? So I've got a 7th here, 3rd, and I could put the 5th. We do have the root note here in the melody, but of course it moves away quickly. But that would sound really nice, and that's a really good range for the trombones there as well. And of course, just like before, we'll have the bass playing the root note. That'll sound good. Let's do something for the G7. Oh, you can see I've actually already written G13. Guess I knew what I was going to do. Let's have a 7th, the 13th there. Of course, diatonically, the E flat is a bit more natural, and that would be a G7 augmented, but I'm going to just try it with the 13th. And we've got the 9th in the melody. That would sound great. The bass would be playing a G. That's a nice rich jazz voicing, and you'll see that sort of thing in big band charts all the time. One bummer about this part is that this player gets to repeat the F, and that's not a massive problem, especially in a ballad at this tempo, but this is sort of the climax of the tune, so it'd be nice to provide some more rhythmic impetus or forward motion. So how about I put in a sneaky tritone substitution? What if I put in an A flat 7 and then the G7? So if you don't know about tritone substitutions, look them up, there's lots of videos. But basically I'm taking this D minor 7, changing it to a D7, and then doing the tritone substitute, which would be an A flat 7. Let's try that. So I'd have the 7th, 3rd, and 13th, and that gives us a flat 9 in the melody, and that's totally fine. Now I can go on to my G13. Now, not only does the bass trombone part get to move, but there's a bit more forward motion in this climactic part of the tune. You see this sort of thing in jazz music all the time. Okay, let's go on to the C minor 9, and I'll stay with the rootless voicings. So I'll have a 3rd, a 7th, and a 9th. So that's a C minor 9. Now there's a momentary dissonance between the melody and the 9th in the trombone. I'm okay with it in this instance, as the trombone moves down to the 5th quite quickly. You'll hear that in a moment. And we've just come off these rather lush chords, so I feel like it's going to sound fine, but let me know in the comments if you think it's too dissonant. Now as we're coming back to the end, I think I'd like to have some nice open rich voicings with the root note and the bass again, because we want a nice solid strong end. So how about I put the root note here, we have a 3rd, and I could put the 7th here, but now we really are getting in the way of the melody. We're going to have that minor 2nd again, and it happens over a beat and a bit, so I think that's too much. I'm going to go down the octave, just like that. Again, it's one of those really common shell voicings, root, 7th, 3rd. That would sound good. A little bit like earlier, I feel like some more movement here coming into the chord 1 might be really good. So how about I try the same thing? So I'm going to take this C minor 9, then do a tritone substitution. G flat, then an F. Let's do the same, root, 7th, 3rd. Again, that's just going to give us a little more movement and impetus towards our chord 1. Let's have a look at some of the voice leading and see how some of these parts are to play for the trombones. Let's have a look at the bass trombone part. Yeah, that's a nice part. And these other parts look pretty good too. I'll put a cautionary accidental in there. When I write backings, I try and make sure they make their own sense in terms of rhythm and melody. Just like the melody has to have a nice phrase, backings need to have their own phrasing as well. So I think this rhythm here is really good with the half beat rest, and then it goes up and then comes down. I think that's going to be a really nice accompanying phrase. Here's the second trombone part. Yeah, I mean, that's going to match up really nicely. Okay, on to the end now. So we've just got these three chords for the end, the B flat, the A flat 7, then back to the B flat, and then you can see I've written in this bit of a sort of nice ending for the trombone. And my awesome trombonist, Pablo, has played that beautifully. I think you'll like it. Like before, I'm going to use a bit of a rest just to bring a bit of extra rhythmic impetus to the next chord, but also just to provide a bit of an extra spotlight to the melody coming back home. So I'll stick with the root note on the bottom, and maybe here I'll go for that super low one for a nice fat ending. Yeah, it is a bit of a leap for the bass trombone down, but that's okay, especially for a nice ending chord. Let's put in the third. The third could be up here. It will be above the melody, which is not forbidden, but I think in this case I want to keep the melody sort of special, so I am going to put it down here. And that's okay, it's not too grumbly in that range. And now let's have a sixth. Now before I chose a major seventh at the start, now I'm choosing a sixth. I find that sixth chords just tend to be a bit more settled and consonant, so that's why I'm using it here at the end. Okay, let's move on to the A flat 7. Now we've got the ninth in the melody, so let's have our 7 there. We could have a third. It could be here. Again, that's going above the melody. And here it's a little grumbly. I know we're only a tone down from what I was talking about earlier, but finding a little grumbly. What if I go for the fifth? Yeah, I think that's going to be nice. And yeah, I'm missing the third here. You don't have to include the third. Of course, we usually do. But I think in this case it's okay, as it's sort of an ambiguous ending moment anyway. And now for my ending chord, which is going to look really similar to the first chord, where I have the third. Again, I'm going to stick with the sixth. So B flat 6, with the first trombone ending on the ninth. Here's what that sounds like. And that's it, you made it to the end. So yeah, we explored rootless voicings, nice big open voicings, and some closed position voicings. If you got any questions or comments, leave them down below. I'd like to hear what you think of the different voicing types and what ones were your favourite. If you're really into this stuff, I also give online lessons and have a PDF workbook for sale. Links are in the description. What do you think? Did you enjoy it? Thank you so much to the trombonist Pablo Ruiz Anal. He's got an awesome YouTube channel as well, so please go and check it out. He's a really great player and musician.